Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy on the More Insights and Strategy podcast. And I'm Patrick Moorhead, your host for today. And I am so glad to have again on the show from Zoho, Raju Vegesna. Good to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Patrick. How about you?
Good. Yeah, we had a really informative show talking about consumer surveillance. I love surveillance. It's much more impactful than privacy, right? Like consumers literally are being spied on. And what we talked about last time is the ways that companies do this, how you know you're being spied on, which pretty much is you turn on an electronic device and you connect to the internet or just GPS and you're being spied on. And we also talked a little bit about what Zoho does, right? Zoho isn't just talking the good game here. They're actually doing something about it. So thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. I didn't scare you off. The next thing that I'd like to do is talk about business surveillance. And but maybe before we jump right in, Raju, for those who didn't catch the first installment, can you talk a little bit about what you do at the company and just a little bit about the company itself?
Sure. Zoho is a company that has been around for 24 years. We do business applications where you can run your entire business on the platform, from the email website to email hosting to accounting to whatnot. And I'm the chief evangelist of the company. Been lucky to be with the company for over 2 decades, and we globally headquartered in India, but we have presence in over 180 countries.
Yeah, I really got an eye-opener when I had my first analyst day with all of you in Austin. Thank you for coming to Austin. I didn't have to travel to India, but at some point I hope to get there. It was a real eye-opener. I mean, just a very heartfelt company it felt like a company that really wanted to do good for society. And I know that everybody talks about that, but by your actions, including things like surveillance, I really think you're living up to that. So let's talk a little bit about how does business surveillance different from consumer surveillance?
Well, a lot of attention has been paid to the consumer surveillance, but there is similar thing going on the business side, which not a lot of people pay attention to. Because typically on the consumer side, majority of the businesses and the business models focus on advertising. But when it comes to business side of things, it's not necessarily advertising. Typically they're paying for services or products, but still there is surveillance going on to pull information together about various business users out there. And because it is not advertising based business model, it tends to get ignored. But there is an equal amount of surveillance that is going on in the business that is often ignored. Let's say you submit a form to a business saying, hey, I'm interested in your service. And you may be entering maybe a name or a phone number and an email address. What's going on underneath, behind the scenes, is incredible. They pretty much are trying to get all the information about you, and they're building a profile about you. And before they respond to you through a call or an email, they know a lot more information about you than you have let them know. And all of this is thanks to all the surveillance that is going on behind the scenes by several businesses out there. And there are several vendors and billions of dollars at stake that are empowering that surveillance system out there.
Can you talk a little bit about who the players are, and if you don't want to mention their names, maybe just describe them? I mean, you've got data platforms, you have data integration that's being done, and the speed at which it's done is incredible. Leveraging global cloud networks to be able to do data aggregation, all of that. So Who is it? Who's doing this?
I mean, there are a lot of data platform providers. In fact, there is a terminology like called data platforms, as you said, data aggregation services and whatnot. And if you look at their website and description, let me pick up a name, let's say DNB, right? You go to their website and look at the description out there. They take pride in the depth of information about businesses and individuals and business professionals, and then the breadth of information where they collect information from literally thousands of sources to aggregate that information. So when you look up an email address, they will likely have more information about you, the user. And it has become that data aggregation, which is essentially surveillance, but we had to make up onto it and call it data intelligence or whatever. And that's going on from every vendor or majority of the vendors do this. Oracle has this. Oracle also recently acquired someone. Salesforce has it, and recently there is I think a lawsuit from European Union against Oracle and Salesforce about this, precisely this, where they have a ton of information and about billions of users, and it is part of that broader so-called value they provide to other businesses.
Oh, interesting. So they're actually Fortune 500 CRM companies engaging in this type of behavior. I think I saw an article or a website where you can actually go put in a URL and see the people who are surveilling you. Isn't there a website out there it can do that?
Yeah, you can go to something like builtwith.com and you enter a website URL out there. Let's pick a vendor out there and look at all the embed codes that they have in there, and that tells you how many trackers are embedded on that particular website. And which means not only this particular vendor has information about you, but other 20 trackers that are out there also know that you have visited that website. And you as a consumer, unless you are putting a conscious effort to block those third-party trackers, you're going to be tracked.
That's interesting. Now, what if I'm using like an HCM system? Does that mean that they're spying on my employees as well?
Well, if you have information, what will be interesting to see is the software that you use and what are the trackers that are behind the software. That is the key. Like, what is being tracked is interesting. Let's say a simple application may have Google Analytics embedded in there. Now, it's not only this vendor that knows about it, but Google also knows about your activity within that particular application. And then where is that application hosted? Is it hosted in, say, Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud or someone else? Well, there is another vendor that has a advertising-based business model, and all cloud providers have advertising-based business model. They also know about your activity. So if you look at it right from the where this application is hosted to all the way to the consumer level, everything is being tracked, because your business might be using, let's say, a DNS provider, and that DNS lookup likely is going to some of the DNS service providers. If you look at who the DNS service provider is, likely a Google or AWS and whatnot. They also know which websites you're visiting. They also know the various other things that you're doing, various other tabs, because of this. There are some technicalities. They can not only know your activity on the particular tab for that particular application, they also can tell you what other tabs you have open at this particular time.
My gosh, I had no idea. And I'm supposed to be a tech guy. I've been in this industry for 30 years, and I'm learning something right now. I'm a little bit embarrassed that I didn't know that, but I did not know that.
Majority of the browsers do allow it today, unfortunately, and they can tell you information and other sites that you have visited, and then it is likely that other sites you have visited also have the same thing embedded. I mean, how many websites have something like Google Analytics embedded, which means Google knows a lot about you. and then where you're going from, look at all the browsers out there. Let's say you're using Chrome. Well, it's like the biggest spyware out there. I personally don't install Chrome on my device because I consider it spyware. But like that, there are a ton of such security hacks that are out there, but a lot of people are unfamiliar with it. So even on the business context, you may mandate a certain thing, but underneath there is such a information free flow that is happening because there's no regulation here, that it hurts businesses. Because as an employer, you may mandate your employee to use a certain software, and that software may have some surveillance embeds in there, and the employee is giving up their private information because the employer mandated it. Where do we draw the line? What are the precautions an employer is taking to protect employees' information? All of these were never discussed in the past.
Yeah, and we know that most employees, I surf some consumer stuff at work when I'm on a break. Even though I'm the CEO, I feel like I should still work when I'm at work versus playing when I'm at home. But you can even imagine people who might take home a notebook if they're at work, back when we used to work at work, and take that home and do their stuff. You've got this perfect combination of the business software folks getting information on the people while they're using these business applications, and then being able to join that data with things that we're doing while we're at home. It's pretty crazy. So it's one thing to talk about it. What is Zoho doing about it? You have a pretty forceful stance here.
Yeah, for example, we basically took a stance saying that we will not let any surveillance company track our users, period. So which means we got rid of all third-party trackers. We at Zoho, we take something like a Facebook like button or a Google Analytics or whatnot. Everything is eliminated. In fact, if you go to Built With and look at Zoho, you're not going to find a lot of these trackers you would find elsewhere. That's because we took a stance and said we're going to get rid of everything. And that by taking that stance, we lose certain things. And, we give up a lot of stuff, which means we won't be able to advertise effectively. And we won't know who has seen our ad and whatnot. The concept of retargeting doesn't exist because we are not letting anyone in, and there is no way to track those. But we felt that is an easy thing to give up compared to what is important for the consumer or the user. Protecting the user information and their privacy is more important than us knowing how effective our marketing spend has been. And we know that in the long run, if we do the right things will work out. So we don't care about those statistics and all of that. Sometimes it's not always about the numbers. You just have to go by your gut and gut instinct and execute.
Yeah, I have this instinct that there's going to be a lot more discussion on this, and you're probably wondering, well, gosh, we got to hurry this thing up and get this out. But I think you're going to see some changes in browsers that are going to really shake up the world out there. I see what Apple's talking about. I see what Microsoft is talking about, and maybe it's like security where we plug one hole and it comes in another hole, right? And maybe more sophisticated surveillance techniques coming up, like we're going to talk about. But let's not. We're not going to let the cat out of the bag yet on that one.
Yeah, in fact, the next version of Apple Safari in the next operating system, they already prominently include the number of trackers in there. And I did test it out, and you'll notice that with all the prominent vendors, you'll notice 10 trackers, 15 trackers, 20 trackers. I tweeted about it where I visited Zoho.com and it said 0 trackers.
Oh,
that awareness is important. And I'm glad Apple is taking a similar stance as well on the privacy. And on the business side, we are taking that stance. and that awareness is needed. And I hope browsers evolve into it, because we should not dilute the message of privacy. Ironically, I've seen Google talk about privacy. that's a different discussion altogether. But I hope businesses, particularly in the business side, take this seriously on some of these, and certainly should block a lot of the surveillance.
Very insightful stuff, Raju. We are at time here for our audience. I'd like to thank first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show, and I'd like to thank our audience for sticking in there. If you like what you heard so far, press that subscribe button, and thank you very much, Raju, for coming on. Next, we're going to be talking about a new kind of surveillance called adjunct surveillance. So with that, thanks, and have a great one.